Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock and Roll Podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy, Mark.
Hey, Frank, and hello, listeners. How you doing?
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and now Amazon Music Podcasts.
Be sure to head over to YouTube where you can see Frank fully nude. While you're there, you'll notice that we're not alone. We've got a visitor with us this week.
That's right. And for any new listeners out there, there's a podcast where Mark and I recommend albums to each other and we review them. We have a wide variety of musical discussions, like our Spotlight series, right, Mark, where we dig into a band's catalog and we see what comes out on the other side.
That's right, Frank. Or in our Verse series where we pit two albums against each other and we duke it out for total stereo domination.
Be sure to check out our Instagram page and our new Facebook group. We like to drop additional content there that will leave you wanting more of our musical goodness and, of course, Mark's random nonsense. And if you have a record that you want us to check out and review, just drop us a comment wherever you find us. And while you're at it, subscribe, like, and review. So I say this, Mark, how are you, my friend?
Frankie, I am very excited this week. How about you?
Good. We're super excited because we have Ross Gordon from the band Cold Years. And, of course, Cold Years is a band hailing from Aberdeen, Scotland. So, Ross, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Happy to be here.
Appreciate your time.
It's considerably colder in where I am right now, where you are. So, yeah.
We'll get to that. Don't worry.
It was 93 degrees out when I got in my car this afternoon to buy scotch for this. For those of you unfamiliar with the Aberdeen, Scotland music scene, Cold Years formed in 2014. They released 3 EPs and just released their first full-length album, Paradise.
Yep.
Which I have right here, Ross. I got it right here.
That's cool.
Frank likes it a little bit.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and my daughters love it too, by the way, because I was blasting it in the house the other day. So, Ross, if you just want to introduce yourself a little bit, talk to us your role in the band, what you play, and what your favorite dirty magazines are.
My favorite dirty magazines. Oh, man. I can't even remember the last time I bought a dirty magazine. Probably a long time ago because, the iPhone changed everything. But I actually don't know, to be honest. It's not really a thing in this country. I guess we got Hustler. You get Hustler in the States. Yeah. I've never really bought it. I don't really care about it.
That question. Pornography if I've actually purchased myself. It's always just there. Somebody always just has it. And I think Frank read that line. I thought he'd see it and skip it, but I got him.
We had like these really pathetic magazines in the UK a few years ago called like FHM or like Nuts, which is like promoting this thing called lad culture, which I fucking hate. So I don't really buy dirty magazines. But anyway, moving on. So I play guitar and sing in the band, and I write most of the lyrical content, I guess you could say, for each of the songs. So we've been a band since like 2014, and we just released our first full-length album on a label, and it's been a really fun experience. And it's been delayed a couple of times, and coronavirus has definitely shaped how that release worked, but it's been really, really cool, and we're all really glad to finally get it out in the open for people to hear.
I was doing a little research, Ross, about the band and what you guys got into, and I noticed a few of the guys mentioned you had to kind of get them drunk to talk them into the band. Is there anything, any fun stories you'd like to?
Yeah, as a group of individuals, we don't like to behave that often with that. So it was like, I think mainly because we come from a place where there's nothing to do but drink. So we kind of met in a bar one night, and I'd kind of already told them that they were all in this band, but they actually weren't. They hadn't agreed to it. So we drank a lot of whiskey and kind of sorted it out. And then like a couple of weeks later, we were in a rehearsal room, so it worked. Right.
Yeah, something you said must have influenced them enough to come back, right?
Well, we'd all played in bands before together, but not as all 4 of us. But I'd individually been in bands with everybody else in that band. So like all the guys, we'd all been in bands separately. So we kind of knew what we were getting into anyway.
Yeah, very cool. So, and there's no Dirty Magazine question that Mark threw me for a loop here. The next question, just so you know. So we could talk about like the cliches to describe kind of a band and how they sound. But if you can, how would you say elevator pitch, right? How would you describe your sound to someone who's just discovering you or is asking what you sound like?
I think like it's kind of hard to put it on a shelf because I think it covers like quite a wide variety of musical genre, or like we're all influenced by different people. So like, I grew up on like punk rock, and Finley really likes classic stuff. We likes 50s rock and roll. Fraser's into hardcore. Like we all like different things. So I think it kind of crosses over. But I would say it's probably around, you know, rock and roll or punk rock or that kind of shelf space. I think it fits in there, and it's all like a lot of the tracks I guess are descriptive of the surroundings. Like so they're all like talk about the weather a lot because I feel like it's a pretty good comparison. Yeah, I think it can be. I try and make it as positive sounding as possible, but maybe it doesn't come across that way all the time. But it's definitely like I think a lot of the bands I grew up with definitely shaped this. I think when you first start out as a band, you want to just sound like everybody you like. And it took us a long time to really find the sound. And I think on this record, we have now got a sound that's us.
Quick follow up to that too, because prior to you getting on, Mark and I were just talking about kind of, you know, the 50s rock and roll and kind of that meshing of punk and rock and roll. And I know on your Spotify list of songs you have Social Distortion on there. We love them. We've seen them many times, Mark and I. Would you say that they kind of started that punk rock and roll type sound, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think Mike Ness is the coolest person in the entire planet, and I absolutely love Social Distortion. I'd say that he was probably a pioneer, in so many words, because even from the aesthetic that he has with slicked hair and like, you know, all this gold jewelry and like all these old 50s tattoos and like boxing and cars and all that kind of stuff. I think it's really
the
cool.
classic cars.
Yeah, he drives like Cadillacs and yeah, he wears like these fedora hats and 50s suits and stuff. It's really cool. I think it's a really cool mesh of like vintage style and contemporary punk rock. And I think they, as a band, definitely pioneered that. They also, all their albums sound roughly the same, but that's a good thing with Social Distortion, is that they never needed to change the formula of what they had because it always worked. It was straight, simple, and worked. So I like him because he's a real family person as well, and he had like a pretty severe addiction to heroin at one point in his life and managed to overcome that and made Social Distortion an even more successful band as a result of that. I think like great band.
Totally, and his solo albums were really good too. Mark and I used to be it was just me on guitar and Mark on drums. We were in a band called Cheating at Solitaire, which is based on his first solo album. So that was fun. And his son plays with Jay Jackson,
Elliot.
who Jay Jackson is fantastic too.
Yeah, Elliot, isn't it? His son?
Or Julian, right?
Julian. Julian. Yeah, I remember watching. I can't remember where it was. I saw Social Distortion, but Mike had broken his arm.
Yeah,
and could play guitar on a tour, and his son came along, and he also looks really cool. I think I don't know. There's something about Mike Ness, so like he never ages. Like he's honestly the coolest guy alive. I think he just what a band. And Johnny as well. Like they're just such a good band. Like
I know.
I just love them so much.
Cool dude.
You know, you made an interesting point about how their albums kind of sound the same. They all sound very distinctly Social Distortion. And that's Frank and I were kind of going through these records and listening to kind of you guys progress through the EPs into the full length. I couldn't help but notice, obviously, you guys have an EP called Northern Blues, and then a separate track, Northern Blues, shows up on the album. Is there a connection from the EP to the record, or is this an extension of the idea? What were you guys going for with that?
I think I just wanted to tip a hat to something that we'd done ages ago. I think the thing is, like, between the two albums, I went through a lot of personal stuff, so that I think a lot of the record now covers what I was going through sort of end of 2018 through 2019, and I think it was a particularly bad couple of years for me, and I think that the record covers that pretty. I mean, it's not hard to tell what a lot of the songs are about,
totally,
but I think it was like a little tap goodbye, because I think that era of our band, like up until we'd written these new songs, was over. Like I think it was kind of shutting a door on something that we'd done before. I think like it's like even sound wise, like we'd moved into a sort of more kind of punk rock kind of vibe on the record, and we weren't scared to write an album that we really wanted to write. And I think it was before. I mean, it's much easier when you're recording 4 songs in 2 days on an EP. With a full length, you really get the chance to open up the door and kind of go for whatever you want, and you can have a little more variety on there, and you can really push for what you want. And I think like that song title was just a little goodbye to what we were before, I think, to me.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely. Like, there's themes on the album, like you said, that you could tell, what you're writing about. But I think it really does a great job. And this is me kind of being a little bit of a fanboy now, so I do apologize. But it really does a good job of people being able to relate to everything. I know on the song 31, your sister got married. My sister actually got recently married too, a couple years ago, and that was a very reflective day. 3 years ago, my apologies. Very reflective day for me. And it's, a lot of these things are kind of questioning where we're at in life and kind of where we're going. It's a struggle I think a lot of people go with. So I think you did a great job, and love the last track too, Hunter, which is, I know, about your dog. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I always wanted to write. So I think animals are just as important as people. I don't have kids, I have dogs. So I think I'd never really heard a song about someone grieving the loss of a dog, but it didn't really matter whether it was a dog or a person, he's still my friend. So
Yeah.
that was the kind of thing there where I just wanted to convey that, regardless of whether he was an animal or a child or whatever, he's still my friend. So
Yeah. And, I have 2 young daughters, and they've been asking for a dog. And that, like, that song kind of hit me because it's almost a fear of mine of like that. And that's where there's been a hesitation to them,
yeah,
in reference to that. But I know it's been important to them. And if one does jump in this room, I do apologize real quick. But,
that's fine.
but yeah, that's something that I definitely connected with for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So about Paradise again, Mark and I have definitely looked at several interviews, and there was one a couple weeks ago where I know it's kind of a sarcastic play on words with Paradise, because where you're at is you're dark, cold, gloomy, all those things. And I don't want to hammer that home because I definitely understand it. But like sonically, so did you have an intention sonically as to what you were going for on this album? And do you feel that you were able to reach that? I know in that same interview a couple weeks ago, you said you'll write songs and then like one day it's good, one day it's not good, which I totally get that. But what was the intent going in with Paradise, and do you think you achieved it?
I think for me it was finally just getting to do what we really wanted to do. We had a whole album written at the end of 2018 that we went on a tour, and then I did a lot of writing on that tour and came back and we scrapped the old album and started again, because it just felt like everything that we'd done up until the point we signed with E1 for this next album just wasn't good enough. And then when something's not good enough, rather than run with it and just hope it would be okay, I just went, nah, let's just start again. And I think they respected us for that. It obviously added a lot more time in the process for when they would get a product, but they were really supportive of it, because they were like, it's your debut record. We want you to write the best record you can write. We want you to come out with a bang. So I think we did that. And I think like sonically, for me, I just wanted to do something that I'd kind of grown up with, which, for me was punk rock. And I think we really got away with doing that on this album. Like, we really got the opportunity to do that. Like, I know this is like the geek kind of thing, but my guitar tracks on this record are 2 vintage Les Paul Juniors cranked through 2 Marshall JSM 800s. That's it. There's no bullshit. There's no flair. There's no fancy effects. I didn't spend hours in the studio sitting there figuring out how I wanted my guitar to sound. I knew how I wanted my guitar to sound. I wanted it to sound like someone getting hit in the face. And that was essentially what we did. We took a really stripped back view of it. Like, we worked long hours in that studio with Neil. Neil would finish work at 5, 6 and go home, and he would leave us the keys to the studio, and we'd work all night recording, because Louis is a recording engineer. So we were really hungry for it. And I think we had this vision of what we wanted the songs to sound like, because we demoed them relentlessly before we went to the studio. We had 80 songs for Paradise written, and we ended up stripping them back. We got into 20. We took those 20 songs and re-demoed them and rewrote them and changed things up. And then finally, for the first time ever, I think we went into a studio environment knowing exactly what we wanted, which was crazy. Apart from one song, there was a song called Too Far Gone in there that we wrote in the studio.
Yeah.
That was pieced together over like a day from scratch. It was terrifying. But the rest of it was all, we knew exactly what we wanted.
And it's funny you mentioned Les Paul Juniors. I was just going to say, because I saw you play a Telly at one point. I didn't know if the Telly made it onto the record also.
No, I had this Telly. It it was from a company in California called LSL.
Yeah.
Women, and they're like vintage 50s based spec Telecasters. And when I was playing, like, I mean, I run a lot of gain now. I didn't run a lot of gain before. I didn't really have a punchy tone. I played a lot of open chords. Now it's just power chords. And I play Les Paul Juniors. I've got a Stratocaster, a JB, and a bridge. I like Les Pauls. I love Juniors. I'm actually trying to get another one. I'm trying to get a double cut one right now because I have 2 single cuts. One of them's black and the other one's sunburst, and they're both beat so much. Like, that's why I love those guitars. The more trash they get, the cooler they look. And they're so simple. Like, but I used all the songs. So for every song on this record, I used the Les Pauls, and then I used Neil Kennedy had this thing called a Novo. I don't know if you know what a Novo is. It's like a custom Telecaster kind of esque guitar. It's like nitro paint, super light, and it had a P90 in it, and it just added a bit of top end chime.
Nice.
But a lot of the time it was just Juniors.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to ask, this, you can really hear the thoughtfulness throughout this record and the time you guys spent putting it together and really cleaning it up. Because it's interesting with you describing it as such a punk rock record, because that's not that it doesn't feel punk rock, but that's not the first feeling you get from it. No. And I was noticing the connection between the opening track of 31 and then down towards the end, we get 62, My Generation Falling Apart. Were you trying to connect those 2 songs? And how do you feel like, if I'm not just pulling this out of my ass, how do you feel you did with connecting them and the experience that they make?
So the numbers aren't connected. So the 31, I was 31 when I watched my sister get married, and my life was in the gutter. And I think that one was like a kind of reflection on that. And the 62 number represents the proportion of people in Scotland that voted against Brexit.
That's
so
right. Okay.
We took a political stance on that. But to me, like, all the songs are connected. They all have like one common theme or several common themes, based from everything from wanting real love to like self-destruction to just going a bit crazy. And I think, and this feeling of like isolation and like being trapped somewhere that you don't want to be, whether that's either in a relationship that's going south or in a job that you don't like or in a city that you don't like. And it just so happened I had all 3 of those things happen to me at the same time. So it really, and it took a lot of it out on partying, but there's a lot in there about like wanting things that I didn't have. And it's weird because once the record kind of was finished, I started getting the things that I wanted. And it's like, it's just it was a weird time. And I think like, I look back on some of those songs now and I'm just like, shit, that was a really bad time. I'm kind of glad that's not the current situation.
Right.
But yeah, they all kind of carry the same message. Because I really like songwriters who can, like, if one typical band that did this for me, Alkaline Trio. As I was a kid, every single one of their songs I can relate to a specific time in my life growing up. And I think like bands that can write a song that the lyrics can be interpreted in the person who's listened to them's own way, so they can adapt the song to reflect their own life. I really wanted to do that. So a lot of the lyrics on this record are open-ended. They're not like specifically about, I mean, some of the songs are, I mean, if you listen to like Electricity or any of those songs, they're pretty straight on about what they're about, but some of them are quite open and people can interpret them differently.
Yeah, that again has a really big universal appeal to it. And like you said, who hasn't had that feeling of wanting to get out of a job or a certain place, a relationship, whatever the scenario may be. And good call on the Alkaline Trio. Mark and I are definitely big fans. I know you had Warbrain on your Spotify playlist, which is a fantastic tune. I mean, we could probably have a whole episode just talk about Alkaline Trio tunes. So.
Yeah. As an aside, I would say that oddly enough, even though it is a full album of B-sides, I still think Remains is one of the best things they ever did.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And live, I remember, did we see him live together, Mark? I don't know if we did, but I was even,
we did.
Yeah. Even impressed more with Dan live than I liked him on the record, but live, I thought he really did an amazing job of holding it together too.
I've seen Alkaline Trio 8 or 9 times. And I think the first time I saw them was when Good Morning came out and Matt still had problems with his voice.
Yeah.
I saw them, the last time I saw them was on the Agony and Irony tour, and they opened with Calling All Skeletons. And I have to say, that it's probably one of the coolest openings to any show I think I've ever seen, because they had this air raid siren that went off and all the lights went dark. And it's like, again, we could talk about Alkaline Trio, but I don't know if you've seen it, The Show Must Go Off. This thing we did at the Chicago Ballroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all dressed like dead priests.
Yes, yes, yeah. That's before Matt was using like the Les Pauls exclusively for a while. He was like on the Jaguars, I think he was using
Yeah,
those.
yeah, he had some custom guitar, and I can't remember who made them. They were weird. They were like, he had a single coil one and a humbucker one, and they were
Yeah.
red and black. They were really cool. But I only met him once, and when I met Derek, he just recently had like all the symbols of the Satanic Bible tattooed on the back of his arms and stuff, and he was going through this weird phase where he was like worshiping Anton LaVey,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
like in a real way. Really cool.
He's got a solo record too, I believe, right, Derek?
He does, yeah. He's also started unearthing a lot of stuff that he did when he was a kid. If you look at his Instagram page, he has like his first demos and like all this weird stuff like cover songs. It's really, really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I met him outside of an Alkaline Trio Bouncing Souls show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going on about Anton LaVey and just was just like, hey, have you read this? And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I want to talk about records, and you were like, we're on two different ships right now.
My girlfriend recently read this. I gave her a copy of the Satanic Bible to read it, and she thought most of it was just bullshit.
I mean, yeah, it's not wrong, but you know, there's some good ideas in there.
I mean, he was a bit of a misogynistic. So, let's be honest.
He was entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Really
mean,
good answers for the Dirty Magazine question.
yeah. I would say the Satanic Bible's a dirty magazine.
Oh yeah,
It falls under that category. But then there's this weird section in the middle with all the spells, which I kind of thought was really odd. And I was trying to read this thinking, do people do this?
Right, it makes you start wondering, right? Does this actually occur?
Witchcraft. Yeah.
Real quick offshoot question on the Matt Skiba. How do you feel he fits with Blink currently?
Great. I think Tom DeLonge was the worst singer in the history of music. So I actually think that as much as I hate the fact that it's put a lot of delays on Alkaline
Trio stuff, right?
I know they're coming back. And their new EP, the new EP that they did was great.
Yeah, that was a great EP. Absolutely.
It was great. I think it's probably the best thing they've done in a long time. I also think at the time, like his Secrets records were really good.
Yeah.
And then he did Heaven. I like Heavens.
I think Heavens is fantastic also.
And he also did, I can't remember the name of the band. It's just completely popped up in my head, but it was called Savile Ronaquins was the EP, and it had The Hell. Do you remember The Hell? He did The Hell.
I don't think I know that one. No, but I will.
Garage punk rock. It's on Spotify. They only did one album.
Okay.
It was like 3-minute long songs. There's a song in there called Gasoline, and it's so cool. Like, it's
okay.
Just really cool.
I'll check that out. Thanks.
Yeah.
I know songwriting, like I feel you're the songwriter where it's really about the music, and I appreciate that because those are the people kind of I look up to, and the quality of the songs are super important, and really trying to figure out how to do things to make things maybe not sound the same. So and again in that interview 3 weeks ago, you stated you have a lot of songs that could be a potential next album. I'm always fascinated by this. What is a songwriter like? How do you, I guess, construct a song to go ahead and make it maybe not sound like this or have a different vibe to the other songs? Are you doing anything with the tuning? Are you using capos? Like, what does that look like in your brain when you're kind of constructing a song?
It differs. So like I used to use a lot of capo. You guys call them capos. We call them capos. I don't know, but I'm
from New York originally, so the vowels, you know.
I actually can't stand them. I used to write a lot of music on acoustic guitars and use capos for everything. And, you know, I got to the point where we were playing live and I would have to be changing. I mean, another person who, let's not celebrate him because he is an evil person, but Ryan Adams used a lot of capos. And
I know, dude.
He did that where he would watch him live and he would every song he would change guitar or change tuning. I can't stand it. Like my system now is really super simple. I don't use capos at all. I use bar chords on everything. And even a lot of the old songs I've transcribed live to just have this simple setup. And like writing is different. So like I people always have this romantic idea of songwriters carrying around a book and a pen. That's all crap. Everyone's got an iPhone. Like I use an iPhone, and if I'm sitting on a train I've actually got this app on my phone that records voice, and if you listen to it, a lot of it, like some of the recordings are just like single sentences, or some of them are just melodies that I'll sing if I'm driving home in traffic and I'm stuck and I'm bored and I come up with something. Or sometimes we'll get in a room and write a song as a full band from scratch. Sometimes we've all got home recording rigs. Like I've got
Yeah.
Logic, so a lot of us will do that. Or yeah, it changes every single time. But I don't think there's ever a real concerted effort ever to try and make something sound different. I don't really care about that. If it's going to sound how it's going to sound. And I think with this album, we really tried to not emulate what anybody else is doing. Because one thing I hate about the UK, like fantastically, there's like all these South Coast punk bands who've all got rich parents who all sound the fucking same. And we made such a huge effort to try and stray away from that because I
Yeah.
call them fashion bands. Yeah. And what happens is you have one band that blows up and does that. And then in a small place like Aberdeen, where there's virtually no diversity in culture, one band will then try to emulate that. And then everybody else emulates that. And then what happens is you end up with no diversity in your scene. You end up with a bunch of bands doing the same thing. Same thing happened when hardcore was big here in like 2011, 2012. All the
Okay.
bands sounded the same. No one did anything different. And you end up in a really stagnant scene. And then you're essentially expelled from that because you're not doing what everybody else is doing. So I think like for us, we just wanted to do something different and thought, screw it, I don't really care what other people think. Like that
Yeah.
was a big part.
Real quick follow up to that. When you say all the bands are emulating a certain punk sound, like what if you had to just give me a band that they were trying to go after? What would you say it was?
Milk Teeth. I can't stand that band. Milk Teeth, or I don't know. I don't really care enough about any of them to
Right.
I don't know. They're
Okay.
probably one of them. Yeah, I'll tell you who's really good, who I got into the other day. Hot Milk. They are so good. I don't know if you've heard Hot Milk.
No, they're not no.
No, or I also got into Microwave. I don't know if you've heard Microwave.
I don't know. Actually, I haven't heard of them either.
Try
Wow.
them.
So we're getting schooled right now.
Try them.
This is
Microwave.
how we find bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, try Microwave. If you like punk rock, you'll love Microwave.
I've heard of Neutral Milk Hotel, but obviously not Hot Milk. Yeah.
No, Hot Milk, cool. Actually, I saw them. They supported Def Havana last time I saw them, and they were really really cool, and they were just different. They're I think like so many. It's actually really depressing because to me the only real like rock, or I guess you could call a metal band, that's ever managed to successfully mix electronic music with guitars, other than Enter Shikari, is always going to be Bring Me the Horizon. And the problem is now all these other bands are trying to copy that. So you have like, I mean, probably the worst band that's ever come out of Scotland, Twin Atlantic, tried to do it, and it was absolute horseshit. I think it was one of the worst albums I'd ever heard in my life. And then you have like, I don't know, You Meet Six did it, and then you had like Def Havana tried to do it, and none of them have really achieved what Always Sykes or anybody from like Bring Me the Horizon are probably one of the most incredible bands in the world right now. And I'm not a huge fan of that music. I'm not. I don't listen to metal, but I love their albums. I could literally. They're just so clever, and like I think they're doing something totally different. And everybody else has jumped on that bandwagon and tried to copy it, and they're failing miserable. Like it's really bad. So yeah, it happens on a larger scale too, I guess.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
With you, you mentioning what a small community Aberdeen is, and how hard it is to grow sonically there without there being other influences except for the bands feeding off each other. When you guys kind of found a little bit of success in Germany, if I understand correctly, and started going there regularly, were you guys finding more things to help grow what your sound was like and what you were trying to create by experiencing that different culture?
Yeah, I think touring is like, anybody asks you when one piece of advice that you would give to someone when they're starting a band is to get in the van, because touring grows you as a person. It also, it not only expands the demographic of people that listen to your music, but it teaches you quite a lot. And I write a lot when I'm on tour because there's a lot of downtime, so you don't really have anything else to do. So I tend to do a lot of writing. I use the time productively. But like touring, yeah, like I say, that getting to go to different places and see different people, or even having the idea that you can go to a different country and people will pay to come and watch your music, blows my mind. And it's a really really cool experience, and it definitely helps you grow as a songwriter too.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know you had U.S. plans. Obviously, COVID has derailed everyone's life plans. But what did those look like, and where were you going to hit up?
We were supposed to be in the States for a month, and it was basically all over. And it was when those plans were cancelled. It was supposed to be in June, and I remember sitting watching the news as this horrible freaking thing overtook the planet, and just thinking, this year's shot. Like, there's no. there's absolutely no way we're going anywhere this year. We got to do one show, well, two shows, well, technically two shows in Germany, but other than that, I think that's the last that you're in to at least next summer. And even then, like, I see all the festivals in the UK
I
and
know.
are putting lineups up, and I'm just like, nah, it's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't matter how optimistic you are; it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And so have you individually or you as a band been to the States before, or that would have been your first time?
I've been to the States once in my life, and I
Okay.
was 8 years old, and I don't remember much about it. I was in Florida, actually. My partner and I want to go back to Disneyland, and we're trying to book it, but obviously right now it's not very.
Right.
There's no point because I don't know what's going on. Are your parks open?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been busy too.
They have been busy. I've known people to go there, and they say there's not a lot of people there. So like ideally outside of COVID, like this would be an ideal time because you could go on all the rides and
Everybody wearing masks.
yeah, everyone wearing masks. Disney's enforcing them pretty strictly, as you could imagine.
One of my favorite things about the internet right now, I don't know if you see this, right? But I'm like a really strong advocate of Black Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff. If you look at, there's a thing on Instagram, right? And it's like called Karen's Going Wild. And it's like basically it's all like, it's almost like live leak for Karens, right? And it's people that will film people like anti-maskers or like people being racist
Oh yeah.
in public forum. And then you get to see like the screenshots from them like acting like an asshole to them getting fired and, and their life collapsing around them. And it's so satisfying. It's brilliant. Oh man.
Well, hopefully you guys make it back to Florida, or
I hope so.
you as an individual coming to the parks, and of course you as a band, able to go to all the places. Even if you don't come to Florida, maybe Mark and I will definitely make a conservative effort to try to try to catch you guys.
I would love to come to Florida. Your weather is incredible, and you know how to eat properly. Your food is great.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of cool stuff. I used to gripe about it. So here, I'll give you a quick story because my wife's originally from Cleveland, and I'm sure not maybe similar to an extreme of the weather in Scotland, but they have their own kind of dark and gloomy area. So every time I were to complain about Florida, she's like, "Come on, man, what are you doing?" She's like, I mean, this is way different. Try living in Cleveland in a really, really cold winter. It's depressing and dreary. So yeah, we have a lot to offer. You can stay here if you want. Don't tell my wife, but you could stay in my spare room. So
yeah, the only thing I'm scared about are alligators, so that's okay. Get me the fuck away from alligators. I don't like them. They freak me out so much. Nah.
Yeah.
The last dinosaur, man, I'd be afraid of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's some cool stuff though. There's a place called Dinosaur. I'm sorry.
I'll take you up on that offer. I'll come stay with you.
Absolutely. You'll be right next to the kids' room. So
Do you like PBR?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have PBR. We get PBR here, but we have to pay a lot of money for it here.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
We also get White Claw here. That you guys, yeah.
So we have a buddy who works for Bud. So we do. I do the Bud Light seltzers. I don't know, but Mark, you're not taking those, are you?
No, well, I work for a different beverage company who doesn't make the seltzer, so I don't drink any of those.
I used to work for a beverage company too, called Brewdog, in Scotland. But let's not enter that conversation. It's probably not good. Probably not.
We can have brewery conversations later because I work for one here in the U.S. that I won't mention because I use a lot of swear words and have bad things to say, so they don't like me talking about it on the internet.
That's fair enough. I mean, yeah. Let's definitely set up a separate podcast to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll air out all of our frustrations on the other podcast. So with the next two, I know we talked about kind of how you have these songs and for the next album, though. But how do you see that taking shape? Like, is there a time frame you guys have, or just now you're just taking the, I guess, advantage of having the time to go ahead and write these songs? And what's the time frame in your mind?
I don't know. I think we originally had planned to go back into the studio in the first quarter of next year, but because I'm a firm believer of, like you say, make the use of the time. Ideally, I'd want to go and tour Paradise for a year circuit. Yeah. Like that would be you always want to have at least a year touring behind you, but we're not going to get to do that. So I think we just have to swallow our pride and just go, right, well, it's not worked out the way we wanted it because of a pandemic, but we've got new material. So why not start utilizing the time to get some of it out? And I think we will definitely record another album next year, but I don't know when. And to be fair, there's such a wide diversity of music that's coming out of all of us at the moment. Like I'm writing songs for that side of things, but I'm also writing songs for myself, which is the first time in years that I've done that. You know, I use lockdown to write songs that I didn't want to use for my band. Like they have other reasons. You know, you don't have to always put music out to write it. So for me, it was like a really cool experience. And especially, I think it was weird. I went through like surges. So I would have like a 2 week period where I'd write every single day and have loads of inspiration. And then I'd have like another 2 week period where I didn't even look at a guitar because I'd seen the same four walls for weeks on end, and I was just growing tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot.
I appreciate the humble approach you have with regards to songwriting. As you said earlier, you know, some people are like, you know, it's so majestic and magical, and you know, Paul McCartney falling out to bed writing yesterday. But really, there's a humble aspect to it.
That's all musicians trying to justify. That's like, I mean, I don't know. I read an article. I don't know if you've seen this about Kanye West and record labels. Have you seen that article?
Yeah, I've heard about it. No, absolutely, but I heard it's pretty good.
Whatever drugs he's on, I guess like you should really start sharing them with someone, like with some people. It's like
antipsychotics is what he needs to be on. Like, some undiagnosed bipolar disorder.
Put in a straitjacket and locked in a cell and never let out, I think would be great.
Yeah, I'm pretty on page with that.
There you go. This is not a, you know, obviously I've never been to Scotland. Mark, have you been to that area of
I have not.
the world? So I don't want to sound ignorant on this, but as far as like the scene goes, and I know a lot of things in the UK are more revered, I think, than they are here in the US, such as like 50s rock and roll, or rockabilly, maybe even psychobilly. Was there kind of that vibe over when you were growing up, or over by where you're living?
No, you had the Stray Cats. That was probably what it's like. We didn't have that. Like, I guess like there was in the early 2000s, we had one venue, which it was originally a pirate theme bar, which was really, really cool, but they've now turned it into some tiki bar, and it's got a pirate. It's quite cool. But they had a lot of psychobilly events or rockabilly, and like there were a lot of bands that did that, but it was a really remote part of that culture, and wasn't very well attended. Like it wasn't ever popular here, which is a shame, because I think it's a great genre of music, and I think it takes a lot of skill. Like if you watch Brian Setzer play guitar, that guy is insane. Like, and he's like, how old is he now? Like 60 or something?
Yeah, he's in his 60s.
Still doing that. And like still slicking his hair back and getting neck tattoos and rocking a Fender Bassman and a big old Gretsch and just like going for it. And I think there's something about that style of music that's just so cool.
Yeah.
And like it definitely feeds into the social distortion thing again, because it's like they look like that, but they don't sound like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And again, before you got on, Mark and I were talking about that, so I just had to ask, because I know, rockabilly it's niche, right? So I think you just have limitations.
It's dirty Buddy Holly. That's how I always class it. It's dirty Buddy Holly. Nice. And it's like, it sounds sleazy and raunchy and cool. It's like really, really cool. I don't know if you've ever, like, they all wear these like really stupidly tight leather jackets, and it's just like, it must be so uncomfortable to play in that attire, but I guess they all love it. So,
I always wanted to join a rockabilly band, but I never had the hair for it, so I just never did it.
But
I feel like if you said to Mike Ness, like, you guys sound like Dirty Buddy Holly, like I could just feel him clutching his chest and like welling up with a tear in his eye. Like, what a compliment that really is, like, to be able to pull that off and for it to be of quality. I think that's a really cool description.
Yeah, I just think it is. And the thing is, that's like, it's funny because rock bands now seem to forget where rock and roll actually comes from.
Yes.
And it doesn't come from white guys playing Les Pauls. Like it's not Led Zeppelin. It's none of that, you know. And I think like they forget that. I think a lot of it and that's the thing that like blows my mind, is that people seem to forget that without Black culture, or like even like Ray Charles, like anybody like that, rock and roll wouldn't exist. And like it's never really widely acknowledged nowadays. And I think that's really sad, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was a car crash of sorts, of all different cultures in music, right? That then arrived at were
Bill
rocking.
Richard, like
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, a lot of those records my father had, growing up, and absolutely. I mean, Chuck Berry, all those people.
I like Chuck Berry, but he's a bit of a questionable character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mark watched something recently on him, and he's like, "Did you know all of these things that happened?" Because I mean, he lived quite a long time, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow."
After his musical career, and of course, most notably, cameras and toilets. I mean, that's
Exploiting women, piece of shit.
I
But
can
you know,
ask him about the dirty magazines.
the funny thing about him was, I actually read this was in Keith Richards' book, and it was talking about how when Keith Richards did a tour with Chuck Berry, I don't know if you've seen the footage of it. There's live footage of them, and Chuck Berry, like, he was a mean guy. He would shout and scream at people and throw things at people, and he always demanded to be paid in a briefcase of money in advance before the show. He never took any other form of payment other than cash in a briefcase, right up until he died. And he wanted paid when he arrived, which is crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of weird that, like, it takes a year like 2020 for you to look back and go, Keith Richards is kind of a normal guy.
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. There's a documentary on Netflix about him, and it's fucking crazy. You actually, like, just sitting watching him, like, chain smoke cigarettes, drink like vodka and orange for breakfast, and sit in this room. And I'm gonna go out and say it right now. I actually don't think he's that great a musician.
Yeah,
I was sitting there watching him play guitar, and I'm like, dude, you're just too old to be doing this now. Like, I still think he wrote some of the best songs in the world, but that doesn't make him a great player. Like, I think "Gimme Shelter" is one of my favorite songs of all time. But do I think that he could, like, he was just sitting in this room drunk playing a guitar, like, and I'm like, you're not bored of doing that now? Like, you've been doing that for like 50 years.
It's funny you say that because it was a year ago, August. Sorry, Florida time frame also goes off of hurricane, so I have to think about which hurricane was about to hit and what was the sequence of events regarding that. But I saw the Rolling Stones, and I told Mark, I think right after, I was like, Ronnie Wood held down the whole fort on the guitar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ronnie Wood was a far better player, and of course he was in the basses, which is, I just think incredible musician all around.
Yeah, I was like, but he was doing everything, and Richards was doing his whole, the whole shindig, playing a couple chords every once in a while, playing them on the neck, kind of half doing it. But I was like, the whole guitar sound is coming from Ronnie Wood.
That's like Rancid. So Lars Frederiksen plays guitar in Rancid. Tim Armstrong does not play guitar.
You're right.
Does not also a piece of shit too, by the way. But
wait, Tim or Lars? Who you talking
Armstrong? Yeah, he had a wife called Brody Dowdy. He did not treat very well. Yeah.
She's with the guy from Queens of the Stone Age, right?
Josh Homme, yeah. The most attractive man in rock and roll.
We did and good band, an underrated band in my opinion, by the way. We did a spotlight series on Rancid on one of our episodes, and that was awesome. Just going through all the records, right, Mark?
I love Rancid so much.
Yeah.
I still think one of the best things they did was that California Sun song that they did for South Park. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah, so absolutely. It was on the South Park soundtrack. And what's awesome, because Lars is doing the lead vocals on that, but there's a Life Won't Wait demo of that song where Tim's doing it, and it's more of a kind of rock steady dub version. Equally awesome, but that song is pretty badass.
I liked his Poet's Life record. I thought it was really, really good. I also like Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards. I also thought they were hands down one of the best bands.
Viking is an amazing record.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. Love it.
I'm liking the old Firm Casualties. Those records are cool. They're very primal.
They are.
But they feel very like, man, I wish I could get more Lars songs on this Rancid album and like get these.
I was always a fan of Lars songs.
Yeah,
me too.
I think like as well, like, you're absolutely right. I don't know if you saw that tour he did just literally before lockdown, where he was just traveling in venues with an electric guitar.
Yeah, we watched it. It was awesome.
Playing songs literally like without a band, but still playing them like punk songs, which I thought was, nobody's ever done that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Jeff Rosenstock, I guess. He does that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I love Rancid. I always have loved Rancid.
Yeah, Mark will send me stuff on Instagram and be like, Lars is selling his old WWF ring. You might want to get it. I'm like, oh, let me check it out.
He sells all this, like, he collects, like, loads of action figures.
Yeah.
And he's, like, selling entire cabinets of action figures right now.
It's so
that's
cool.
so weird. Like, I think the other day he posted like a pair of his shoes, like collector's shoes that he hadn't worn that he just bought to collect. And I was like, or I think maybe he was looking for these shoes. I don't know what it was, but I was just like, you're one of like the icons of 90s punk rock, right? Like you're like unmistakable guy. And the world is out looking for shoes for you right now because you threw it out there. Like it's so wild to me.
Yeah, and do you know what? Again, probably one of the best live bands I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Tim didn't really do much. He just kind of sat at the stage and kind of mumbled some lyrics into a vocal microphone. But yeah, great band.
Great, no, totally great band. I wish they would do a whole show of Rancid 2000 front to back. I would love to hear them duplicate that because I love that record so much.
I love Let's Go. It's
yeah.
like, to be honest, it's the 25th anniversary of Commonwealth. Like, literally a couple of weeks, no, last week. And they've just done some really cool limited merch for that as well, actually. It's quite cool. I like even like Operation Ivy. Like, I like Operation Ivy. Yep. And I'm like, oh, like Bad Brains. And like, I just think like, yeah, it's weird how like everyone always talks about Black Flag, right? I like Black Flag, right? But I think people, it's a bit like, you ask half the people who are like wearing a Black Flag t-shirt, they probably don't know who Black Flag are. It's like when you go and you see all these girls or young guys wearing Misfits t-shirts and you're like, do you know what that logo is? Like, I think Misfits have probably made more money on merch than they ever have on records. But it's like one of these things where like those bands are kind of like fading away now. Like it's gone are the days where Hot Topic sells Ramones t-shirts.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen anymore.
Well, one t-shirt you won't find, which we also did another episode on, was Fugazi, and Mark and I absolutely
Fugazi, Waiting Room, one of the best songs of all time.
We did a 2-parter episode, and honestly, at the end of it, we needed therapy. Like Mark and I are like, we got to go speak to someone after digging into these albums because it was so amazingly exhausting.
But they have like a load of bootleg live DVDs that you can get. Fugazi are awesome.
And they're actually really good quality. There's like, I think they tried to record every possible live show they could, and then I think they're like $1 each, or like I think most of them are, if you go on the Fugazi website, just a donation, whatever you want, and they give the money to, it's Fugazi, that you know that they're giving the money to something helpful, and you get the entire show to download. Like it's just such a cool, that band. Every time.
Every time.
Yeah, they're great.
Even Rites of Spring too. Looking at Guy Pachado's old band, I mean that was awesome too. Man, we can nerd it out and talk about this for so long. Quick question for you, Ross, on the merchandise front, Death Chasers. Do you guys have that available in vinyl? Because I will purchase that.
Yeah, we'll send you one. That's cool. You don't need to pay for it. We'll send you one. What to do is after this, just send Jamie your address and we'll get one shipped.
I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. I mean, like I said, I know this was kind of you talking about Cold Years and it's kind of ventured off to all musical chat. So we really appreciate that because I think you're obviously your lover just the way we are as music, and we can talk about this all day long.
Mm-hmm. I think it's it's a cool thing. Like, it's like I don't know. I was brought up with it, so it's like obviously like a huge passion in your life. I think, and it's like you can get lost in it. I'm lucky enough to have a partner. It's the same. So she adores music, like lives and breathes it, and it's cool because you end up having these conversations with each other about it all the time. And like I couldn't imagine imagine not being interested in music. How shit would life be? I could be one of these guys that like lives for Spotify playlists and listens to fucking I don't know Cardi B all the time. I'm not dissing her because she's actually great, but I don't know. Like, I just think there's like a lot of people consume music, but they don't appreciate it or love it.
Yeah, a lot of it is just as Mark would tell me. For some people, it just exists, but I think there's a deeper level, and a lot of this project that Mark and I started was to kind of really dig and peel back those layers and see what a lot of this stuff is. My wife's the same way. I mean, the minute I put on your guys' record, just so you know, she's like, "Oh, this is legit." First of all, she loves your voice. She's like, the singer's got a fantastic voice. It's almost one of those points, again, not being fanboy, but it's like hearing music kind of for the first time in a while. So, Mark and I are big fans of your guys, and we can't wait for your for success in the U.S. And we're not, we're gonna be telling everybody on earth about that we know about you guys. So,
oh, that's so cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, totally.
Well, typically we end the show by announcing the record we're going to listen to for next week.
Yeah.
Do you have a record you would recommend for us to listen to for next week?
You've probably already heard it, but the Last Interrupters record is fantastic. Like, I love that band so much. I think they are probably... Sorry?
I'm sorry. I love that Scott's making a comeback, and I love that record. So thank you.
Yeah.
I get to get some
awesome.
Scott.
It's such an awesome album. Like, and there's so many, like, it's literally one of those albums you can put on and listen to start to finish and just not like, She's Kerosene. It's such a jam. Like, it is such a cool album. It's effortless. Also weird that they're all related.
A little bit.
Yep. Could be.
A little weird.
Yeah.
Cool. So we could definitely do that. Definitely make an Interrupters episode. Definitely appreciate the recommendation. So yeah, so definitely thank you for your time, Ross, today. Again, I know you're super busy and I know it's kind of spawned off in different directions, but
I'm not super busy. I'm super hungover, and this has been really good.
There you go. There you go.
This has helped me a lot.
Well, again, the band is Cold Years. And Ross, if you just want to leave everyone with the best way to keep in touch with you guys and find out all the happenings.
Yeah. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff that I hate. You can find it on all social media.
So do I. Yeah.
So that's where I find us. We have some merch for sale. We sold quite a lot of the custom vinyls, but there's still some black ones left. We'll be restocking the shop in the next couple of weeks. And we have quite a lot of merch available too. So check it out.
Yep. Absolutely. The album is Paradise. It's awesome. It's my favorite record right now. And I'm not just saying that. So absolutely check it out. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening. You can check us out on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Thank you, and be safe in the world out there.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.